Episode 19, Echoes of the Past. The days followed were tense but quiet, as though the Hollow Man had been temporarily driven back. Evelyn and Caleb spent their time in preparation, determined not to be caught off guard. Evelyn continued to study the ancient texts, scouring them for anything that could help her sever the Hollow Man's connection to her. Caleb, meanwhile, kept close, always ready to offer his presence and strength. One afternoon, Evelyn sat in the village library, poring over a heavy tome filled with handwritten notes and strange symbols. The air was thick with dust, and the old building creaked in the quiet, an eerie reminder of the weight of history around her. She glanced over her shoulder every so often, half expecting to see a shadow lurking in the dim corners. As she turned a page, her fingers froze on a passage. It detailed an ancient rite, one rarely practiced, because of the risks involved. Known as the rite of binding, it required the practitioner to confront their deepest fears, to seal away a malevolent force. Evelyn's heart raced as she read the passage, feeling as though the words were directed at her. The rite demanded an anchor, a trusted individual willing to brave the ritual alongside the practitioner. She knew without a doubt that Caleb would offer to help her, but the risks terrified her. If something went wrong, they could both end up trapped in the darkness forever. Determined to understand every aspect of the rite, Evelyn copied the text into her notebook, memorizing each step. She realized this could be her only chance to rid herself of the Hollow Man for good, but the potential cost loomed large in her mind. That evening, Evelyn met Caleb outside the village, where the sun cast long shadows over the fields. She told him about the rite, her voice steady, but her hands trembling as she explained the dangers involved. Caleb listened carefully, his face solemn. When she finished, he didn't hesitate. "Whatever the risks, I'm with you," he said, his gaze unwavering. "We'll face him together, Evelyn." Her heart swelled with gratitude, but her fear for him remained. "You don't have to do this, Caleb. The rite is dangerous, there's no guarantee we'll make it through. And there's no guarantee you'll make it through alone," he countered. "I'd rather face the darkness with you than be left behind, wondering if you're safe. I trust you, Evelyn. And I believe we can defeat him." With his words grounding her resolve, Evelyn nodded. Together, they spent the night preparing, gathering the materials needed for the rite, and studying each step meticulously. They knew that once they began, there would be no turning back. At midnight, they made their way to the ancient cave hidden at the edge of the forest, the same place where Evelyn had first encountered the Hollow Man. The air was thick and cold, filled with an unnatural silence that pressed down on them. Inside the cave, shadows seemed to dance along the walls, twisting and shifting in ways that made Evelyn's skin crawl. They set up the ritual circle, placing candles at precise intervals around the altar. Evelyn could feel a strange energy pulsing from the stone, as if the very ground remembered the Hollow Man's dark presence. Caleb watched her with quiet intensity as she prepared, his calm presence a source of strength. Finally, Evelyn took a deep breath, steadying herself. "Are you ready?" she asked, meeting his gaze. Caleb nodded, stepping into the circle beside her. "Ready." Evelyn began the incantation, her voice echoing through the cave, carrying the ancient words that would summon the Hollow Man and bind him to her will. The candles flickered as her voice grew stronger, her confidence building as she felt the light within her grow. But as the ritual intensified, a cold wind swept through the cave, and the shadows began to gather, swirling in a dark vortex at the edge of the circle. The Hollow Man emerged from the darkness, his figure shifting and warping, eyes blazing with fury. "You think you can bind me, Evelyn?" he sneered, his voice a low hiss. "You are nothing but a frightened child, clinging to a spark that will soon be snuffed out." Evelyn's grip on Caleb's hand tightened, and she forced herself to stay calm. "I am not afraid of you," she said, her voice steady. "You've tormented me for too long. It ends tonight." The Hollow Man laughed, a dark, twisted sound that sent shivers down her spine. "You are nothing without your fears, Evelyn. I am a part of you, woven into your very soul. You cannot escape me." Evelyn met his gaze, unflinching. "I may carry my fears, but they do not control me. I am stronger than you." As she spoke, she felt the light within her pulse, radiating through her body, a warmth that pushed back the hollow man's darkness. But he didn't retreat. Instead, he lunged forward, his shadowy form seeping into the circle, clawing at the light surrounding her. Caleb's grip tightened around her hand, anchoring her as the hollow man's influence pressed against them, a suffocating weight that threatened to consume them both. "Stay with me," Caleb whispered, his voice a steady reassurance. "Remember the light, Evelyn. We can face this together." With his words, Evelyn felt a surge of strength, a warmth that banished the hollow man's cold touch. She focused on the light within her, letting it expand, filling the circle with a radiant glow that pushed back the shadows. The hollow man held, his form twisting as the light scorched him, weakening his grip on her mind. But he wasn't giving up. With one last, desperate lunge, he reached out, his shadowy fingers closing around her wrist. Pain shot through her, a cold burn that threatened to snuff out the light within her. She gasped, struggling to keep her focus, to remember the strength that Caleb's presence provided. She could feel the hollow man's influence seeping into her mind, feeding on her doubts and her insecurities. But Caleb's voice cut through the darkness, steady and unwavering. "You are not alone, Evelyn. I believe in you. We can do this." Summoning every ounce of her strength, Evelyn focused on the warmth within her, letting it expand, filling her with a radiant energy that drove out the hollow man's influence. The shadows around her wavered, and she felt his grip loosen as her light grew stronger. With one final surge, she released all the light within her, a blazing force that filled the cave with a brilliant, blinding glow. The hollow man let out a furious scream as the light consumed him, his form dissipating into the shadows, leaving only an echo of his presence behind. Evelyn collapsed, gasping for breath as the light faded. Caleb knelt beside her, his hand resting on her shoulder, grounding her as she fought to regain her composure. "It's over," he murmured, his voice filled with relief. Evelyn nodded, feeling the weight of the hollow man's presence lifting from her, replaced by a strange, quiet peace. For the first time, she felt truly free, unburdened by the darkness that had haunted her for so long. As they left the cave, the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, casting a warm glow over the village. Evelyn looked back at the cave, her heart swelling with gratitude and relief. She knew that the hollow man's influence would linger as a memory, a shadow in her past. But with Caleb by her side, she had the strength to face whatever lay ahead. Together, they walked back to the village, the bond between them stronger than ever, a light that would guide them through whatever trials awaited in the future. End of episode 19.